But at this point, let's segue from Fellini's view of women in the 60s to the position and condition of women in the 90s. In the cinema, they still tend to draw the short straw. Meryl Streep, for instance, is as big a star as, let's say, Jack Nicholson, but she doesn't earn as much. And the story of woman as second-class citizen is much the same behind the scenes. There still aren't too many of them in those offices where the decisions are made. Well, they might bring in the coffee and the bagels, but for the most part, that's as far as it goes. Still, let us not despair. Progress is being made, and gradually woman is beginning to make her presence felt, in Hollywood at least, in the studio boardrooms and behind the cameras, as Tom Brooke reports.
Like an angel, walk like an angel.
She-Devil, a new film starring Roseanne Barr and Meryl Streep, has been directed by a woman, Susan Seidelman. Another woman, Penny Marshall, directed Tom Hanks in Big, a huge box office success a couple of years ago. Dirty Dancing, one of the biggest grossing independent films ever made, was produced by a woman. And a recent surprise hit in America, Look Who's Talking, starring John Travolta, is the work of Amy Heckerling, who wrote the screenplay and directed the film. Black Rain, the new thriller starring Michael Douglas, was co-produced by Sherry Lansing, the first female head of a major Hollywood studio and now a top producer. To hear it from her, women in Hollywood appear to be making remarkable progress.
I don't think there's any prejudice at all anymore. I really think that women are treated quite equally in the movie business. That wasn't true 10 years ago. But I think today there are women producers, women directors, women writers, women heads of studios, and I think we're just accepted. I don't think we're newsworthy anymore. I think we just are a fact. And in reality, I think now we're judged purely by our talent, and talent knows no gender. So if we're good, we stay around, we succeed, we survive, and if we're not, we're treated just like a man is.
However, not everyone would agree with that optimistic assessment. A look at the hard statistics presents a rather different picture. The Directors Guild of America keeps track of the employment of women film directors, and in its most recent annual survey, the Guild found that although well-known individuals had done well, women as a group directed only 2% of all days worked by film directors. Joan Micklin Silver, one of America's leading women directors, whose films include Hester Street, Crossing Delancey, and more recently Loverboy, says women in the film industry have made progress, but there's still much room for improvement.
Well, if you start when I started, my first feature, Hester Street, came out in 1975, and you realize that how few women were directing at that time. When I think I directed the only feature that year and so on, you have to say that things have improved for women. Are they where they should be? Absolutely not. I mean, no. We're 50% of the population. We want to direct 50% of the films.
Action.
Most women directors are painfully aware of discrimination and can recount incidents where they felt they'd lost opportunities.
I can tell you that I considered a script that had basically male characters, and the producer wanted me to do it, and I hadn't made up my mind yet, and the financing outfit, the person who was the head of that, said, no, it's about men, she can't make it. So I didn't get the offer. That's, I mean, when you think of all the childbirth scenes that men have directed and all that.
However, other women filmmakers like Maggie Greenwald, who's directed the soon-to-be-released murder thriller The Kill-Off, says more often than not, discrimination tends to be rather more subtle.
We know since the 60s that it's unacceptable to say, you're a woman, I don't trust you, I don't think you're capable. So it's very, very subtle, and really it takes the form of more constant rejection than, and projects not even being considered until you've proven yourself.
You always come in slightly a step behind when you're a woman. You have to fight for your position over and over again. That's the area where it's difficult.
Paula Weinstein, a top Hollywood producer, says women cannot just sit back waiting for opportunities to come their way.
I think it's still going to take women helping women and pushing each other and cajoling each other and supporting each other before there's a real equality.
New York Women in Film is an example of an organization set up by women working behind the scenes in American cinema to help promote their role in the industry.
we all hate the word networking, but in fact it's been a wonderful way for people to meet others, meet their peers, find work, and also find ways of expanding their own ideas about what they can do. Many of our women are now top executives in film and television companies and know other members whom they can bring in areas of creative responsibility.
It hasn't been easy for women to break into an industry like this, and to have peers who are struggling alongside of you is invaluable, and I think that it's why this organization is so strong and so vital.
Many of America's leading women directors belong to New York Women in Film. As more and more women begin to gain decision-making power, they're having an impact on the kinds of films being made and the range of roles offered to actresses.
There's no doubt that since women have been in more decision-making roles, that we've had better parts for women. There's no doubt about it. There's no doubt when a Goldie Hawn or a Jane Fonda has her own production company, that the women's roles are stronger, more multifaceted.
And women want it to be known that they're highly capable of producing tough films full of action and adventure. It surprised many that the hard-hitting anti-apartheid thriller, A Dry White Season, was the product of a collaboration between two women, director Uzan Palsi, who worked with producer Paula Weinstein.
There is still a stereotype that women like to make little, personal, sentimental, emotional films. And this is a very emotional film, but it is a thriller, and it is tough, and it's very specific in what it's saying. It doesn't fit into any stereotype of the kind of soap opera version of what women would do.
Women in the film industry acknowledge an uphill struggle lies ahead, but what's generating optimism right now is that a number of recent films directed by women have performed remarkably well at the box office.
I think that some people who used to say, well, we don't want women to direct, are now beginning to say, well, they must know something. They must connect to an audience, and if that's the truth, then we want them to direct.
And if Hollywood executives need some up-to-date proof that women can deliver the goods, they don't have to look very far. Amy Heckerling's current hit, Look Who's Talking, has so far brought in more than $120 million at the box office.
Yes, well, there may still be an uphill struggle ahead in Hollywood, but let me tell you that conditions for women filmmakers over there are a lot better than they are for women filmmakers over here. Still, we shouldn't give up hope. After all, we always tag along at least 5 years behind America.